been talking about the Montreal Canadiens and who they could end up drafting in the 2023 NHL draft for a while now, and all the talk around Matvei, Michkov, Reinbacher, Dvorsky, Leonard, and more. But there's been recent reports that the Montreal Canadiens might not be picking 5th overall and might be jumping up in the NHL draft to specifically draft Adam Fantilli. But what are the latest NHL trade rumors surrounding the Montreal Canadiens? Could we actually see a huge draft day trade? Well, watch till the end for all the news, all the rumors, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this all day, every day. You won't want to miss it. Now, with the talk of the Habs being heavily into the moving up in the draft idea, one of the biggest names that has been included in the Habs in their search for a higher draft pick has been Adam Fantilli. And of course, most likely, he'll be selected 2nd overall by the Anaheim Ducks, but a potential trade between the Ducks and the Habs could work. Now, when we talk about Montreal's center core and what it's looking like right now, and of course, when you look at Nick Suzuki, Owen Beck up the lineup, Adam Fantilli would fit in perfectly there and would be that first-line offensive style centerman that I think the Habs could really use. At 6'2", 287 pounds as well, already has those physical traits there, but that game-breaking offensive talent is what Fantilli can really provide, and that great pace, that great play driving, and that great electricity in his game, I think could really fuel Montreal in a lot of ways. You can see 65 points in 36 NCAA games this last year, just ridiculous stat lines, and solid as well in the World Championships. With Fantilli, that's the type of player, if you're going to draft up, you're going to move up, Fantilli would be excellent, and number 2 would be the easiest decision to make. Now let's talk about why these rumors are even coming out in the first place, and it's from this article in The Athletic from Arpon Basu talking about the Montreal Canadiens, their situation with that 5th overall draft pick, and the very high likelihood that they could end up moving up in the draft. And Arpon Basu says this: "We can also confirm a report from Radio Canada colleague Alexander Gasson on Wednesday morning that the Canadiens are trying everything they can to move up in the draft. The report cites their efforts to swap picks with the San Jose Sharks number 4, but the Canadiens have also contacted the Anaheim Ducks to see what it would take to get up to number 2. The cost would likely be astronomical to get from number 5 to number 2, but when a player like Adam Fantilli is available, doing your due diligence to determine that cost is a necessity. The chances of a trade-up materializing remain very slim, but the Canadiens are definitely trying." And that's some huge news here from Arpon Basu, again confirming reports, not just with that 2nd overall pick, but also that 4th overall pick. They are trying to move up in this draft, whether it's slightly, whether it's just a little bit, and to me, that's absolutely what the Montreal Canadiens should be doing. I mean, we look at their 5th overall spot, and to me, it's kind of the worst position for them to be in, because there are some good players there, and there's going to be a solid player that they'd end up picking, especially if it is a player like Matvei Michkov. But at the same time, with their situation, it might be better for them if they're at number 4, where they can guarantee a player like a Leo Carlsson or Will Smith, and especially at number 2, where they can have themselves a guaranteed Adam Fantilli. That's the type of trade that I think Montreal should be in the business of making, even if it would be seemingly impossible with the asking price, especially for Anaheim, who I think is as locked in as possible with Fantilli. But then again, at the very least, I could see a situation where the Sharks are able to move down, they're able to strike a deal with them, maybe end up having Will Smith at 4th overall, and potentially for the Sharks, they end up selecting a D like David Reinbacher, which I think at 5th overall will be a little bit more of a better bet to make if they're going to end up selecting D at all. But to me, with San Jose, they're in an interesting spot where I could see them moving down a little bit if they really wanted to. Montreal could be a good trade partner there. And again, you could basically solidify yourself with a top center in this draft class. You could go for a Bedard, a Fantilli, a Carlsson, or Will Smith. You could lock yourself into that position where the Canadiens now don't have that confirmation whatsoever. If they want to go for a center like a Dvorsky, you could maybe see him as a first-line center. I would not at all. Same thing with Ryan Leonard. But to me, with Montreal, they'd be in a much better position if they want to go for a top 6 center with at least 4th. Now, when we talk about a potential trade between Montreal and Anaheim and what it would actually take to make a deal, to me, it's a trade that on paper would seem, I think, a lot for especially the Habs fans watching. But I think if you're going to trade, if you're going to make that happen, if you're going to go all the way to 2nd overall and basically take away Adam Fantilli and probably that top 4 away from Anaheim, I think it would have to take a lot back, especially when it comes to picks. To me, you are already automatically giving up their both first-round picks. You got, of course, Montreal's with 5th overall and then Florida's with 31st overall. But to me, there would have to be a lot more on top of that. Likely that 2nd overall pick with Montreal and probably a pretty solid prospect like a Joshua or maybe even a player like Owen Beck. To me, it might take that much to get the chances of Adam Fantilli off of Anaheim's hands. And that's the thing. I think it would cost a lot less if it was just second to fourth overall for Anaheim. But because they're going down to fifth overall, and of course, you got the concerns around Matvei Michkov and just the rest of that draft class outside of that core four, to me, I feel like that kind of changes a lot in this ranking, especially considering that Anaheim's position is pretty much locked and loaded. They could go for Adam Fantilli at second overall, and they don't even have to tempt Montreal's offers whatsoever. I think Montreal would have to put out an insane offer for him. Again, I would say those first two first-round picks, a second-round pick, a player going back, maybe even another draft pick on top of that, like a fourth. It would be astronomical, and again, for some, might be a little bit too much. But that's the price you'd have to pay to go up to that spot. But again, to guarantee yourself a player like Adam Fantilli, who in my opinion would be one of the best second overall picks we've seen since probably Jack Eichel, to me, that's the cost you'd have to pay. And Adam Fantilli is a player who I think is going to be a true first-line center, going to be one of the better centers in the league, and will be a great play driver that Montreal desperately needs. That's the thing. Even though I like Matvei Michkov a lot, Adam Fantilli brings a lot of great pro qualities that I don't know if Matvei Michkov can bring, especially right now. And I think for Montreal, he's a player you can have in the NHL next year and not really worry about the development too much. And to me, I think that could be a major success for them. We'll obviously see what happens, but I think for them, fifth overall, going to second overall would be a massive win. Now, what might be a little bit more likely is that the Montreal Canadiens end up going to San Jose and then going up to fourth overall, exchanging fourth and fifth overall picks. And obviously, in a deal like that, it would be to Montreal fourth overall, to San Jose fifth overall. And I think there's also the case that you could probably see Montreal's second rounder there, and maybe a lower tier player or prospect, maybe of the type of, I don't know, like, what would you even put out? Like a Riley Kidney, perhaps? I don't know, something like that where it still guarantees Montreal inside that top four. And I think, again, for a lot of teams out there, there is a big difference between that core four and that, I guess, fifth overall pick. And I think that's why it would still cost quite a bit to raise up to that fourth overall pick. But if you want more of a budget trade for Montreal, and also still the chance to get a player like Will Smith most likely, then I think for Montreal, it's still a trade that would work out pretty well. Will Smith can be a great play driver, can be really exciting and really quite interesting with his dekes and handling and everything, and he brings for Montreal something that they don't have a lot of, and even at fourth overall, that could still be a trade that Montreal makes and is pretty happy with. Now, what if the Habs end up still keeping that fifth overall pick? What could they end up doing? Well, we've seen a lot of rumors recently regarding the Habs draft pick and what could end up happening there. And for a lot of Habs fans, there'll be some good news. Potentially some warming up onto Matvei Michkov. Now, we talked about it a few days ago. There has been rumors about Matvei Michkov going outside of the top 10, which would be crazy to see. But it seems like the Habs have warmed up a little bit onto him. Now, you can see from this tweet, Habs on Reddit saying, "Quit playing games that my heart can't use." This is a quote from Marco Diamaco's article talking about the Montreal Canadiens and their situation, and he said this: "There are NHL sources that spoke to Montreal Hockey Now on the condition of anonymity that mentioned how this is nothing new for general manager Kent Hughes. They're playing coy and not giving away anything to prop up the value of fifth overall. They're trying to take advantage of the Matvei Michkov situation," said a league source, "just like they did with the first overall pick last year before finally making the Slafkovsky pick." Now, you can see here as well, he goes on to say, "I just wanted to bring an added wrinkle. I was told that although they're using Michkov to prompt more discussion with rival teams, belief is that selecting him remains a legit possibility. Things can always change, just like it did last year, but it's a very familiar approach." And said, "Now, last year, I was told the Canadiens liked Wright heading into the combine. That changed in the lead up to the draft after they had their extended scouting meetings and they chose Slafkovsky. It's possible they don't take Michkov, but I don't think he's off the board." So some interesting news there, how they might be playing with that fifth overall pick to try to prop up its value at the same time, trade away that fifth overall pick. But also goes on to say again that Michkov might not be a actual non-negotiator for the Habs, and that Michkov could actually still be the pick the Montreal Canadiens make, which is going against some of the rumors that we've seen recently. But at the same time, I think for Montreal, their sources are very closed doors. Their sources could be really interesting, and with Montreal, we never really know what they're thinking behind those closed doors, behind those meetings. And we saw, of course, how just everything kind of turned on its head last year with the Slafkovsky pick, how we all thought it was going to be right leading up until a little bit with that combine, and of course the World Championships and the Olympics and all that, and how that changed a lot for the Habs. And with them ending up selecting Slafkovsky first overall, we can never really know what they're thinking. Kent Hughes is shown to be a madman on the draft in the past, and selecting Michkov after all of this talk, all these rumors about them not selecting him, would be pretty funny, I can't lie. Also from Carlsson Bobby says, these last 2 weeks, the Habs are doing serious due diligence on 3 prospects in Will Smith, Michkov, and Zach Benson. Seems like these are the 3 that they are extremely focused on in the 2023 NHL draft. And then when we go to his replies as well, there was a really interesting one here that he put out a little while ago. Very interested in Michkov if he's on the board with the hashtag Habs. So it seems like for the Montreal Canadiens, it's starting to leak out a little bit here that they're back on the Michkov train just slightly. And even though nothing is confirmed, it seems like there is again interest in selecting him, which is different than what we saw before, where it seemed like it was almost impossible that they were going to end up selecting Michkov with the quotes that came out and what we saw with them. But it seemed like there is a chance Michkov could end up being their draft pick of 5th overall, which, if they're going to stay at 5th overall, will be my pick as well. But it seems like the Montreal Canadiens draft saga for 2023 is not ending anytime soon. So of course, subscribe and stick with us all throughout, because we're going to be giving you all the updates leading to the NHL draft. So hit that like button if you enjoyed, hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss any single video. But I want to know in the comments down below as well, what do you guys think of this Matvei Michkov situation? What do you think of the Habs potentially going up to 2nd overall to select Adam Fantilli? What do you think about the Habs also going up to 4th overall and what a trade could look like there? What would you give up for those picks for the Habs? How many picks would you give up? Would you give up prospects, players? Let us know down below all your thoughts. And of course, share the video with all the Habs and hockey fans you guys know online, and click this card for all my trade rumor content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and goodbye.